Hey guys, you can now support this show and make your life 50% better by going to patreon.com/thesystemisdown and signing up for the Downers Club, where you're going to get access to a plethora of wild, crazy, and often offensive bonus audio and video episodes of the show on a weekly basis. For more information, just go to patreon.com/thesystemisdown. The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
Question of the day is, where do you get your information? Are you still the type that goes home, plops down on the couch, cracks open a cold beer, and flips on the nightly news, or the 24-hour news, or any CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, or what have you? Or do you get your information elsewhere now? A lot of people are starting to. I would imagine since you're here listening to this show, I can't say that we're necessarily news, but you're at least a open-minded enough individual that you seek out news sources to find your information. So let me know where you get your information. Let me know. Well, what's up, Downers? Welcome back to the least comfortable show on the web. The System is Down, the place where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics, the things that trigger you, the things that are politically incorrect, the things that makes your mother get a little concerned about whether or not she raised you right. The System is Down. And if you're new here, go find the person who invited you and give them a big kiss on the lips. Actually, give them 2 kisses. One from me for them bringing you here, and one from you because you're going to enjoy it. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. I'll put it in writing. Stake my name on it. And if you're one of the many people who tune in every single Monday morning for your weekly dose of discomfort, then welcome back. Today's another fun one. I had Frank Val from the Quite Frankly podcast on the show today, and his show is one that I've been listening to for probably a couple months now. I referenced his show a couple times back when we were covering the hashtag Operation Backyard Brawl case, and I've referenced him in our anti-news and the bonus segments in the Downers Club, which you can get into by going to patreon.com/thesystemisdown. You know what it is. I don't have to keep saying it. But yeah, Frank hosts an amazing show where he gives just unfiltered, unedited, raw, just commentary on what's going on in the world today, be that news or politics or conspiracy stuff. He covers all of it in a very level-headed yet real manner. He pulls no punches, and I really enjoy it. So I would recommend, after you listen to this episode, go on over and subscribe to the Quite Frankly podcast. But yeah, it was a great little discussion. Frank didn't have a lot of time, so it's a little bit shorter than some of our other episodes. But we talked about, hosting an alternative news site such as his, and just where the mainstream media is heading, where the country in general is heading with all this outrage and back and forth and nonsense. So we're going to jump into that right in about 35 seconds. But before we do, I'm going to let you know about our new sponsor. We have a sponsor, and they are the 29 Toes podcast. Very, very different podcast than the one that you're listening to right now. Very chill. Just dudes talking about dudes, drinking beers. It's if you need something to just veg out and have fun with, they talk about movies, they talk about what's going on in their lives. It's just a nice, fun, laid-back, often gross, I'll say it, often gross podcast. And they had me on as a guest recently, which I will be airing probably next week. I'll be airing those episodes. So go check out the 29 Toes podcast, wherever podcasts are found. Alrighty, let's get into my conversation with the great Frankie Val from the Quite Frankly podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get weird. Well, my guest today is podcaster, musician, and all-around fascinating individual, Frankie Val. Frank, how's it going, man?
Dan, good to be with you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I was turned on to your show probably just about a month ago, and dude, the stuff you're doing, I could only hope to be doing stuff on that level someday. It's blowing my mind as far as just news coverage and peppering in the conspiracy stuff when it comes up, even just being real with what's going on in the world. So before we jump into that, I always like to get people's their history and kind of their background and see if that plays anything into where they are today. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But and I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so just give me like a brief overview of like what your childhood was, and in as far as like some of the topics that you talk about, politics and conspiracies and stuff like that.
No, hey man. First of all, thank you so much for the compliments. And to be honest, anybody can be doing what I'm doing. Just as long as you have the a little bit of stubbornness. I think that's what it really comes down to. Just gotta. We've been streaming live on the internet. Probably it started in 2006 in college. So my brother and my best friend and I, we were putting together an idea for a college radio show, and because we were proposed a slot on a 1 a.m. Sunday morning at my college in 2006, and we loved it so much that when the spring semester ended, we were like, "How the hell do we bring this home?" And at that point, 2006, I mean, YouTube was in its infancy. I think wasn't that a 2005 launch? I forget. Well, either way, it was years and years off from live streaming.
Sure.
And what we did was we brought it home and we started building up this cocktail of technology, audio technology, and we had whatever internet we could. We had awful computers. And me, Anthony, and Mike, we started a radio show on our own schedule, and we kept to it. And what we did was we were live on, first it was Shoutcast, then it was Live 365. Then on July 7th, 2007, the day of the sevens, we went down to, I believe it might have been Union Square. I don't know where the hell it was at that point, that they had this YouTube convention. Well, not so much a convention, more of a meetup. And at this meetup, where all of these like first generation YouTubers are out there was a guy walking around with a backpack on, and he had this hat. And on the hat, there was like right on the brim, there was this webcam. And the webcam, he was streaming live, and he was going all throughout the country, pretty much driving around, streaming live from this very, very primitive Go Pack that he had created. And we're like, whoa, there's the video technology is starting to come out. How the hell, the question we have now in 2007 is, how do we marry the radio with the video and create this kind of an internet television appeal? And that's where we're started. And that's when we found Ustream. And from Ustream, we were there from 2007 until that guy that we saw at the play, he was using Justin TV, which of course became Twitch. And that's when we found Ustream. I became good friends with Brad Hunstable of Ustream, and we were able to test out all their beta technology and all that. And we eventually created our own broadcast network. It was called ZenLive.tv, the Zeralza Entertainment Network. I'm not going to go into what Zeralza means. But from there, it was really entertainment, broadcasting, independent news, just crazy stuff. So we're all students of Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony and, Ron and Fez. And we're listening to all these guys for so long that it was really just about having fun and being as honest as we could about things. And of course, saying things that we would regret 10 years later. And that was probably around the time, I would say 2011 or 2010 is when I started stumbling upon some conspiracy theory videos on YouTube. And I'm like, you know what, this stuff is really interesting. And I always love conspiracy theories, even when, some very like basic renditions of these theories would play out on Discovery Channel or History Channel, when late at night they would talk about the Merovingian kings and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, I love this. It's not even so much that I wanted to believe in all this stuff. It's just that I just wanted to consider that there was more to this really just I don't know. What can you really say? I just wanted to believe that there was more to what was going on, and that just made me feel cozy. So I said, hey, give me more. At that point, I said, well, I don't want to weigh down this broadcast that me, Mike, and Anthony do a couple times a week to with stuff that they don't really care about, and with stuff that is a little bit heavier than the lighthearted shit that we were doing. Like we would make fun of movies on air. It was almost like a little bit of a mystery science theater on steroids some nights. And then, I mean, we did a lot of different stuff like that. Really interesting interviews with circus sideshow freaks. People eating light bulbs on the air with us and stuff. And I
Howard Stern
had
type.
my ass waxed on air. It was weird.
So
weird
Howard,
I mean,
Howard Stern.
Yeah, just very normal things.
Yeah.
But from there is when I started looking for a way to separate all of this and make sure that there was another place where I can have different types of conversations. And that's when this all popped up. And I would have to say that it was just that long road of doing different types of broadcasts, listening to different types of content, starting to read a little bit more, giving mainstream media their due after a certain point, just so that I had something to compare and contrast everything else with, and then just jumping into straight history and everything else. So the occult, conspiracy theory, U.S. history, world history, all that kind of meshed together along with that shock jock kind of mentality. And then, of course, my brother and I were raised on stage by my father. My father gave us the performing arts and introduced us to Broadway and old school Hollywood, and always directed all of our school plays and coordinated all that stuff, choreographed things. We were given a lot of that by my father. My mother is the one who introduced me to baseball. She taught me how to be a shortstop, and it was a very, very eclectic background. And so I think that it's just the interest in the subject matter and the fact that I have a performance background that I think the gradual evolution of being able to write a format or an hour-long show that would translate into something both entertaining, fun, and maybe a little bit informational, or at least to create a dialectic. Because if you've been watching me for a month, and you probably know, I am very, very comfortable with not having the answers.
Right.
And that's pretty much that's what I can give you. That's the short of it, actually.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. I think being comfortable with not having the answers, we need more of that in, like news. I mean, we have 24-hour news today where people come out and they scream that they have the answers, and then they have to backpedal 24 hours later. So what is it that you think is causing, like, sources of information such as yourself to get the followings and take those followings, and even people like InfoWars and Alex Jones and stuff like that? What do you think is driving people to these new outlets of information rather than the most trusted CNN?
Well, I believe that we're all very receptive animals in many ways. I think that even in our most dumbed down, uneducated state, we have this this primal intuition that even if we can't articulate it because our language has been corrupted, or like I said before, the data that we've been able to process over the course of our lives has been lacking. Even if that is the case, I believe that we still have this mechanism in our gut where even the most limited person can say something doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't pass the sniff test. Everybody around me seems to be eating this up, but I don't know why this doesn't make sense. I believe that is something that is gifted to many people. Obviously it can get buried underneath many layers of shit, both intentional and unintentional. But I would think that combining that intuition of being able to know that something doesn't feel right and there has to be more to the story, and I don't even know where to start looking or what questions to ask.
Right.
On top of that, I think that there's also a very voyeuristic part of our of our personality that after a while wants all of the lipstick and the blush to come off, and they don't want to see this polished nonsense, and they want to hear somebody expressing raw emotion. They want to hear somebody saying what they're feeling inside, not these talking points that's supposed to, dampen down your curiosity. And I
Right.
think people are looking for realness. I think they're looking for reality. So when they find somebody that's real, and there's so many ways to express who you are, like people ask me, what they should do, and whether or not, how I do what I do. And I say, listen, it's just look in the mirror, look inside of yourself. Who are you? And let that shine through. And for that reason, there's no reason why anybody should ever feel, threatened by anybody else if you're being real. If
Mhm.
you've concocted a personality, if you've concocted a dance, and if you've actually contrived it in some way, then yeah, maybe somebody can duplicate that. But as Bill Hicks said, you already got the law of supply and demand down if you are completely authentic in the way that you convey your thoughts. And I think that is what the internet has opened up for people. It's allowed so many people like you, like me, anybody else in this neighborhood of channels that we live in, to completely be themselves and differentiate themselves, even though, and there is overlap in our opinions. There's definitely overlap in our goals. I think everybody wants to live in a peaceful world. I think everybody wants people to be free from everything, even down to just persecution for having a different opinion. Nobody wants to see people sick and dying if there's a way to help them. So it's always just a matter of what are our commonalities, what makes us unique, and why is the uniqueness that we all have really important. The diversity that people talk about today is nonsense.
Right.
But there's something different inside of everybody that I think is coming through on the internet, and that's why it's being sought after so much more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and that was, I mean, one of the things that drew me to your show is just the unapologetic rawness, and just, I mean, you might be wrong, you might change your mind in the future, you might be wrong, who knows, but this is how I feel, and I don't need to, uh, to follow any certain path of reasoning to appease my listeners or appease anybody else. Just being you authentically, I think that is extremely appealing and very necessary in a day and age where every single news source is preaching the same exact message, and it's basically the people are outraged, you need to be outraged. um,
Yeah.
so I mean, what's your take on that, on just the whole sphere of where we are right now with the media and them seemingly pushing people in these very divisive ways against each other.
Well, there's no more carrots. There's no more carrots. There's no more sticks. There's nothing else. There's nowhere left to go. I
Right.
actually had this in mind for some things I wanted to discuss on tonight's show. To be honest, I especially looking at yesterday's circus of a hearing. It was sad in many ways. It was, whatever. But in the meantime, when you look at it, you're like, all right, well, you're looking at a group of people, and they're all married together. If there's anything that we've learned or had confirmation of in the last couple of years, is that this cabal inside of the government, it knows no party. Progressivism knows no party, and in many ways, progressivism, communism, socialism is just a tool that they ideologue, they impart onto a lower class of people to debate the ideal, and to talk about its value and all that, and to give into it. Once people on a lower level give into this collectivist mentality, no matter how ideologically pure or how altruistic it is and how egalitarian it is, all that stuff is nonsense to those at the top. I mean, it's been said many times before that socialism is for the people; it's not for the socialists. So the I would have to say that aside from all of that, to actually have the confirmation of the marriage between the media, which is supposed to be the checking mechanism for these power centers, and then of course the politicians themselves are engaged in all types of destabilization efforts, not only with currency but also with just populations in general, creating migrant crises to overwhelm what was once stable parts of the world, so that once again collectivization can continue. It's never about liberty, and I believe that at this point now, is looking at the animal nature of yesterday's hearings, which is just the not even a cherry on top. We're just adding more toppings on top of the sundae that we're eating. And what you have here is you have these people who have no more carrots, no more incentives. They've gotten rid of all the platitudes don't work anymore. Even the last gasp of all this stuff, which is harping on race and sex and gender even now, it's not working. So I mean, that's why I was preparing myself to bring it up tonight, that the only thing that stopped those people in that congressional hearing yesterday from throwing fists like their foot soldiers and Antifa do is the fact that they are just a little bit more polished politically. It was a stone's throw away from a rock fight. And they're like, there's nothing left here. The only thing left, it's no surprise to me that people are rationalizing why it is now time to throw fists and swing bike locks at each other. Right. Because one side won't do what the other side wants to do, because there is no conversation anymore. There's no place to go. The conversation and the public dialectic has been reduced to debating the humanity of the person in front of them. Is this person in front of me actually human? Because they do not want what I want. It's just, that's what it comes down to. Yeah. There's nowhere left to go. They've used up and they played all of their cards. And now this is just the final gasp here. So it's either people are able to use the Republican process that we have here in our nation to starting to get these bad elements out and improving the conversation, at least in government, that's going to be it's so deep and it's so many generations old now. Who the hell knows? Or we might have to consider that there's even uglier times ahead. Who knows? But sure. I think that's some of my thoughts on that.
Hey, Dan Smots here. I'm taking a second to interrupt myself talking to talk about myself because, I don't get paid a penny for the hours and hours that I put into creating this show for you guys in your greedy little ears, and I've got a family to feed. To make that happen, I run my own media business called Goulash Media. If you have a need in anything from video production to graphic design to audio production and beyond, you can get it all for a painfully fair price at Goulash Media. In video, I do weddings, music videos, commercials, pageants, plays, etc., etc., etc. For design, I do photo editing, album art, logos, branding, business cards, merchandise, you name it. For audio, I do engineering, production, editing, jingles, and, well, podcasts. So if you've got a media need of any kind, or if you'd just like to give a little something back and help keep my children fed, check out all the endless options at my website, goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where we cater to the little guy with the big vision. Okay. Yeah, do you see this as, I mean, people talk about this being like the beginning of a civil war. Do you see it going that way, or do you think that it's going to get to such an insane degree that people start to realize what is really going on here and they wake up to it?
I have not been the only one to say, and I've been saying it for a couple of years now, especially after all the Black Lives Matter riots started up and policemen and policewomen started getting killed indiscriminately. I say to myself, well, there's no two ways about this. We're at least in a cold civil war. There is a divide that is not defined by the Mason-Dixon line anymore. It's not North versus South. It's like a Tet offensive kind of a thing, where in every village in every town and every city, there are people who are ideologically divided. And I know that some places have been more immune to this than others. There's been many times over the last couple of months that I wish I was Amish. I mean, they don't give a shit about anything out there, you know. But I look at.
Be hard to have an Amish podcast, I would think.
What's that?
I said it'd be hard to have an Amish podcast, I would think.
I know. They don't even want computers. I think some of them have computers just for the very express notion of running a business. But outside of that, they're definitely not playing Candy Crush in their free time. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But what was the crux of the question again? I just want to make sure I stay on target.
Civil War.
Oh, Civil War.
Yeah.
So cold Civil War, absolutely. But I don't know. I don't know what the extent of what we have in our head of a civil war, especially when we're looking back to 1860 to 1865 with the war between the states. I don't know how much of that we really should believe or even could conceive that could be reproduced again, especially when you have one side of the aisle that actually doesn't want anybody to own guns.
Right.
So, I mean, you're talking about the most militant side of this Civil War, okay, that's brewing right now. Mm-hmm. The most militant side of this Civil War is anti-gun. Where the hell's that going to go? So, I mean, is there time? Are we looking at the end of people swinging billy clubs at each other or lighting fireworks? Are we looking at? Or is it out of the realm of possibility that we're looking at a late 1960s, 1970s weather underground uprising where people are becoming a little bit more comfortable with planting bombs, homemade explosive devices, threatening people in that way, real domestic terrorism? I think that's what we're going to be looking at here, because you can say we've seen tumultuous times in our country been documented in the past before, and just as recently as the 1970s. I mean, those people probably looked at their options too and said, okay, well, listen, we definitely want to wage war against the system, but what tools do we have? Can we really go face to face with them? We're largely we say that we're pro-peace. We say that we're this and that. We don't have the numbers. We don't have the manpower. And 1860 is a long time ago. What do we have? Well, we can become guerrillas. Mm-hmm. It's guerrilla warfare. We can plant a bomb underneath a bus stop chair. We can plant a bomb or do something or throw some bricks and this and that through the windows of an opposition political headquarters. That's what we're looking at here. I don't think that it's going to be the lining up against, brother versus brother in an open field somewhere and duking it out. It's you got to apply all of the new age facets to the situation. That's why I talk about when we talk about the extent of the crimes that we see playing out in the government and the agencies and this intelligence community, this shadow government that has gone completely unchecked and largely unaccountable since pretty much the Truman administration. And you think to yourself, well, you look throughout the ages, empires and civilization rise and fall. It's constant stories of liberty into tyranny, into liberty reborn, corruption, human tendencies for corruption and colluding with each other, and even right down to the more modern themes with Bilderberg and people getting together. And is it really out of the scope of possibility, the realm of possibility, that people who control industries and they control major facets of entire countries' economies would get together with other powerful people and just make kind of gentlemen's agreements about what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do? We've had collusion cases in Major League Baseball in the past. It's just human nature. So to take all of that stuff and say that it's not happening now is ridiculous, because it's the common theme of our species history. Right. But there are new things to consider. The technology. I mean, think about the technology we're living with now. How would the fall of Rome have played out if there was Twitter,
Yeah.
if there was the internet? What we've been able to do over the last couple of years, first of all, the 2016 election would have been completely different if it wasn't for the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Completely different.
The Russians wouldn't have been able to hack it, right?
Absolutely. It's people like you who helped determine the 2016 election.
Sure.
People who are willing to take up their own efforts into starting a channel, starting a blog, starting to research what people on television are actually saying. Forget about you cannot the one thing that you and I will never be able to explain to somebody is the meme war. Is the great meme war of 2016. How the hell do you explain to somebody
Right.
that is really that was everything.
Right.
That was everything. But that's what I think that it would come down to, and that's the big difference here. It's themes that we've seen time and time again: rise and fall and human corruption. But now there's another neutralizing agent there, and it's that the press is becoming more and more free because the press is the individual person. It means a little bit more responsibility because there's that much more bullshit out there. But I think that's the interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know we got to get going here in just a minute, but I'm curious as to...
We got a couple more.
Okay, cool. I'm curious as to, like, well, you're not on Facebook anymore, which is most people's main source for this type of thing. Tell me about that. Did you get removed for some of the content you were posting, or did you just leave because of the bullshit?
Are you talking about my show's presence or my personal presence?
Your show's presence.
Oh, I took it all off myself.
Sure.
I took it all off myself. First of all, I thought that there was a time where I was like, "Oh wow, Facebook's getting into video streaming. I better get on top of this shit because this is Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook, and not only that, but everybody's always logged into Facebook.
Right.
It's one thing to go live on YouTube. People have to go on the app. Maybe they have their notifications on, but literally so many people. Hundreds of millions of people are always logged into Facebook. So I'm thinking, well, this will be great. Realized very, very soon after that I didn't like the Facebook streaming. I didn't like the process. I didn't like the technology. I didn't think it was very, very efficient. I didn't like that it didn't hold a lot of connections there. And then I just don't believe in Facebook. I don't believe in the authenticity of Facebook. I know that it gets out to a lot of people, but I just did not think I was reaching the right people. And also because people are so connected to it and it's a little bit more of a local thing, I look at YouTube and Periscope and Twitch as a way to reach people I don't know primarily. Facebook, I was saying to myself, these are people, if I want to grow, people are going to know what I do, and it's unavoidable. Right. But if I can help it, I want to make sure that every exchange I have with somebody in town online buying a gallon of milk at the A&P is a little bit more of a nice scenario. If I go to the Home Depot and I'm buying myself some tomato plant saplings next spring, I don't want to get scowled at by people, especially the parents I coach their kids in Little League. If they have different political opinions, I am by no means. There's nothing that I say that would ever really think that make people think that I'm a danger.
You're not preaching to the kids in between swings.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So at that point, I said, you know what? I don't care about this, and I want out. So I scrubbed Facebook of every reference to my show that I could. I'm sure there's probably one or two little vestiges in there that mean nothing. But even personally, I went through, it was maybe about a year ago, I went through my history on Facebook, and I was on Facebook in 2005 when my college signed up with Facebook. So you couldn't get on unless your college signed up with Facebook. My college did. I jumped on. You needed a college email address. It was before your great aunts with the Yahoo email account can go on. Right. So that's what I did. I got on there and I went through all of my history on Facebook since 2005, and I downloaded all of my pictures. I deleted everything else. and I just started. I cleaned up my timeline for as far back as I could. Oh, the other thing that Facebook did was they started telling you, hey, this moment in your Facebook history, they show you what you posted like 2 years ago on that date.
Remember how stupid you were 5 years ago?
Dude,
we're going to put that in your face.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful. What I'll say is this. If you look at anything that you posted on Facebook 5 years ago and you're not embarrassed, then you haven't been growing.
Right.
That's all I'll say. And so I got off of that, and I kept it active because I pretty much just used the messenger. There's too many contacts from over the years that I can still reach out to, and family and friends. So I use the Facebook Messenger, but very, very rarely you ever see me post anything on Facebook personally. So
sure. Now, have you gotten any pushback from some of these platforms like YouTube and stuff like that? Because I know people like Destroying the Illusion has gotten his site taken down or his page taken down a couple times. Have you had any of that?
Yeah. He got his site taken down. Jordan did. Sean from SGT, he's another friend of mine, and he's been getting strikes leveled against him. I mean, we saw Anti-School got taken down for a little bit, right? There's just so much going on. Defango had a problem there, especially that like couple of weeks that everybody called the first purge.
Right.
It was really, really crazy. At that point, I actually went onto my channel. I said, you know what? There's really no getting around this because it's so arbitrary. They're talking about hate speech, and they're talking about the speech being violence, and you can't even discuss controversial topics. So what protections do you really have? That is completely arbitrary. It's up to somebody, some anonymous little YouTube volunteer that they call heroes, to go out and say, this offends me. And it's just like, all right, well, how do you defend against that? So what I did was during the purge, I said everything before. I made everything that I put on my channel into unlisted state from before February 1st of this year. Eventually, I listed it all again because I was just thinking to myself, there's so much material I'm making unsearchable now, and for what? Right. Because I'm gonna whatever. I'm gonna save myself? No, there's no saving it. And but I have never had a community strike. The only thing I do get is I get a lot of copyright notifications because I use a lot of good music, right. And I refuse, and that's why my Patreon and all that is really important to me, because, and plugging that is because I knew from the beginning I do not want their AdSense. I don't want to be a part of that, because people who start relying on AdSense have to, in many ways, keep things catchy. They have to drift toward what is going to produce a lot of eyes. Right. And I didn't want to be motivated by anything like that. So I said, you know what, keep your AdSense. I'm just going to keep using the music that I love. And of course, the second that they find third-party content anywhere, even though it doesn't have a strike against your account, it monetizes it for the copyright owner, and you can't monetize your video. I don't give a shit about it. Mm-hmm. So the only thing I really had was copyright issues. All of the community strikes, nothing yet. Knock on wood. But that's why I just try to train myself in the way I articulate my points, because I do get pretty fiery sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I go home, I cringe and I go, did I go too far with that? But I don't. I think I've pretty much drawn the line with what's acceptable and what's not. And I never denigrate a person for who they are. I go after their thoughts and their beliefs. Mm-hmm. But I never go after a person because of who they are, what they look. Well, no, I make fun of people's appearance. So I don't know what. To be honest, I don't know what the fuck has kept me safe. I should just. I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna end up jinxing you now, and it's gonna go down later today.
The more I talk to you, man, the more I realize I don't have a grip on anything.
I do not have a security here. I don't know why I'm still going, but yeah, we'll keep doing it. Well, it's great, man. And I would love to have you on again in the future. We've cited your show many times on our show in the past month since we've discovered you, just as basically our news source because love the stuff that you're doing. And I would love to have you on to talk about, some of the current events, things that are going on in the world, because I love your brain and your take on that type of thing. But before we go here, tell everybody where they can find out more about the Quite Frankly podcast and your Patreon, your band, everything you got going on, man.
Oh, well, you can just search Quite Frankly on YouTube. But I have been very, very diligent in building a home base away from it all, and that is quitefranklypodcast.com. And all the information you need, all the platforms we're on, all the ways to become a sponsor or a patron, it's all in there. Like I say every night, it's a live show Monday through Friday. It's original, it is unrehearsed, and it is interactive, and it'll always be free. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm very, very appreciative for those who have helped me put more time into this, but it really is just about having the kind of fun that we're having right now and having that conversation. So quitefranklypodcast.com, you can branch out to everything else from there. And are you have any plans of taking this show live?
Yeah, we're planning on doing. Well, this is kind of insider information, but I don't know when this is coming out, so it might be announced by then. But we are planning on doing we do a news segment for our bonus members and our patrons, and we're planning on eventually working that into a live show as well. So
that'd be awesome, man. Because I'll tell you, this would have been a really great live cast. I think people would agree with it. People would love it, and there's nothing like launching a live stream and have people just feel part, like they're in the bleachers somewhere, or they're actually there on the field. It's a great thing. I think you do a great job, man. I really appreciate the invitation, and anytime you want me back, you let me know. And you already know I love when you call into my show, so keep that up as well.
Absolutely. Well, Frank, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. Hope to do it again soon.
You got it, man. Anytime. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. I do. I always do. You know that. Love Frank. Love what he's doing. And I have no problem with gushing about it because I tune into his show regularly, and there's not too many shows that I do that for. I tune into his show every night that I can, and I've called in several times because I just love the work that he's doing. He puts tons of work into his show, and I applaud him for it and thank him. So go check him out, quitefranklypodcast.com. Also go check out our sponsor, the 29 Toes Podcast, wherever podcasts are found, and veg out on some much more comfortable nonsense. And as you're going about your week, be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and hit the notification bell on YouTube and do all of that stuff. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I said it at the top of the show, but the question of the day is, where do you get your information from? Let me know where you get your news and information from. You can let me know in the comments section if you're on YouTube, or if you are, if you're a member of the System is Down forum, you can go let me know on there. Personally, directly to me, Dan Smuts, or anybody else. You can go in there for free by going to tsidpod.com/forum and just come in and chat with us. Have a good time. Get weird, uncomfortable, civil. That's what we're all about. And if you want to support the show, go on over to patreon.com/thesystemisdown and get a bunch of bonus audio and video uncomfortable content. My cat is knocking on the door. Cat? Hush. Patreon.com/thesystemisdown. And what else? Just go out and have a conversation with somebody that you disagree with this week. Let them know that it's possible, because that's the only way we're going to turn this ship around, this ship that is sailing straight into the harbors of Crazy Town. There's a part of me that feels like we've already landed, we've already set up shop, we've already pillaged and plundered the natives and raped their women and burned the city down. But I still think this craziness, this nonsense, this controversy between sides, between arbitrary sides, is eventually going to come to a head, and people are going to start just throwing it out. They're going to start seeing that there's nothing here. There's no substance here. Like Frank said, there's no carrot left to dangle to outrage people. I think people are going to start waking up. I really do. And I hate using that expression. I know it's cheesy and corny as shit, but I think that people are going to start realizing, kind of like Tyler Baggins a couple episodes ago, I think they're going to start realizing that, maybe the other side, whichever side you're on, maybe the other side isn't, they're not the enemy. They're not evil. They're not trying to destroy anybody. I don't know, you guys. Go out and have a conversation with somebody. Try and see their point of view and know what you believe. If they give you enough information to change your mind, then just change your freaking mind. Do it. That's what we're here to do. That's growth. So go talk to somebody. Listen to them. Tell them the truth. Tell them what you think and listen to them. They might be right. You might be right. I don't know. But what I do know is that having the conversation is never wrong. So thank you guys so much for listening. You are very loved by me dearly. I appreciate you very much, whether you are a patron supporter or just somebody who listens for free and shares the show around, or even if you just listen to it for free and enjoy it. I hope that it improves the quality of your life. And if you would like to improve the quality of your life more, consider giving to our Patreon account, patreon.com/systemsdown, and help the show get bigger and better. It will only benefit you as you get a bunch of bonus audio and video content, and this audio and video content continues to grow and become the best that it possibly can be for your viewing and listening pleasure. All right, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for listening again, and if you'll have me, I'll be right back here in your ears first thing next Monday morning with some more uncomfortable content for you. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, question everything and stay uncomfortable. Thanks. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.